A very good evening and welcome to all our participants from India, the various states of India and abroad. This is the first academic session of the second part of the Global Tipping Point Summit. The first part of the summit was designed primarily for educators, but fortunately, we had a lot of parents attending that summit. We hope to see parents and educators on the same page. And I'm glad to realize that this time we have a lot of educators doing the Rethinking Parenting Summit. So welcome once again to one and all. I am Dr. Kumias Vevaina, the founder director of the Global Tipping Point Summit. I have worked all my life as a professor of literature in the University of Mumbai, and I've had a great stint there. I'm now working as an education futurist. I've done two TEDx talks. I'm a literary critic, a parent and teacher, a workshop leader, a writer, and very importantly, a storyteller. So this idea of the Global Tipping Point Summit came to me because I realized that a lot of us keep attending seminars and workshops, and we at that moment feel that we have great takeaways, but then we implement very little. So this is a summit where we want to move from words to action. It's a project-based summit, and I'll elucidate this concept in a couple of minutes. Education, fine, but a lot of people asked me, why rethinking parenting? I am hoping to really bring parents and the teachers together, the entire system together, so that we can have a healthy dialogue and work out mutually enriching ways of interacting with our children. The parent-child relationship can be a very, very troubling one, fraught with anxieties. We don't know how to deal with them. There is no course, no degree that parents can take. We play it by ear. Our children are so different. Siblings are different. Thank God they are different. But how do we deal with them? So this is something that I started thinking about, and I said this should be a necessary complementary summit to the education one. So the first thing is we started thinking of the various themes. And we, as a whole core committee group, had some ideas. And then we took, as it were, an opinion poll. My friend, Ruchita Dhar Shah, who was there yesterday, the CEO of First Moms Club, put it out on her website. And we had some very, very interesting feedback. So once we decided on the themes, we started looking for speakers and the best speakers. And trust me, it's absolutely magical that every good speaker I approached immediately said yes, beginning with Father Joe Pereira today, who's going to talk about addictions, something extremely important. We may be extremely fortunate not to have, as of now, an addict in our family, but we cannot turn a blind eye to something that is becoming a serious social problem. So the first session is on addiction. The next session tomorrow is by none other than India's best known environmentalist, Bittu Sehgal. And he is going to talk about ways in which we can create compassion and empathy in children and teach them to honor and respect all sentient beings, all of nature. Next week, we have two very interesting lady speakers. From Dubai, we have Suzanne Rodrigues, who's going to talk about nurturing creativity in children. And creativity does not mean buying entertainment packages, buying things for children endlessly. Children have their own creativity. They are not an empty slate. They're born creative. And Ken Robinson tells us that when children are tested, 99% of children in kindergarten test as creative. But the same children, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, really show a dip in their creativity. So how do we nurture creativity? That is what Suzanne is going to talk about. Then we have the principal of Gateway School, Varsha Makija, who's going to talk about parenting a differently abled child. Again, something very important. We talk about inclusivity, that we don't know enough in this area as well. The week after that, the third week, we have a person from Singapore who is a parenting expert called Jim Lim Tek Wee. And he is going to talk about cyber wellness and how we can continue maintaining healthy relationships even in cyberspace. The next speaker is a scientist from the Aurobindo Ashram, Shraddhalu Ranade, who's going to talk about integral parenting. The child has to be treated as a soul, as a spirit, not as matter on which we can do our own imprinting. In the last week, we have an amazing young lady from the Jaslok Hospital who heads the counseling department, Mahera Desai, and she's going to talk about the scars of shaming, different forms of shaming, physical, emotional, mental, psychological, all kinds of shaming. And we conclude with a professor from Australia, Mr. Mark McLeod, who's talking about how we need to create social awareness in children and awareness of social justice issues and awareness of what Rabindranath Tagore called narrow domestic walls, which heedlessly divide us. So the entire summit is planned in a very, very exciting way. And we have many, many who are supporting us. And I hope that all of you who are present here today continue attending all the sessions. The plan of this summit is slightly different from things that we've been used to. At a normal summit, the structure is that we first hear a speaker, ask a few questions, and that's it. As I said a moment ago, this is a project-oriented summit. We have the speaker at the center, and the speaker will be speaking for 20 minutes. But over several months now, the speaker has been liaising with 4 people. You see them in blue in this diagram. We call them the change facilitators. The change facilitators and the speakers have come together to create a mini project. Different aspects of that project have been taken up by the 4 change facilitators who will be addressing you even today. The change facilitators will tell the online audience which specific area they're happy to provide training in. And then we invite the online audience to sign Google Forms and step in as action group members. The action group members will be trained by these 4 facilitators over a period of 12 hours. Each facilitator creates a module of 3 hours. 4 facilitators, 12 hours. At the end of the 12 hours, the action group members go out into the world, create their own small groups of people, and start implementing all those ideas. At the end of the year, they come back with an impact report saying how well or not that well they've succeeded. At the end of it, we hope to create a white paper, tell the government that this is what we have achieved, and spread this awareness. Everything is available as open resource on our website. So we invite you all to sign up as action group members and avail of the expertise of our change facilitators. This summit is so huge, it's impossible to say it's mine. No, it's not. All of us have worked together as a team. 108 people have been working tirelessly over several months on this particular summit, and I need to thank them. I would like to begin with my advisory board. My advisory board has been a source of major support. It comprises Dr. Firoza Godrej, who addressed us yesterday at the inauguration, Mr. Naushir Kurodi, Mr. Naushir Dadarawala, Mr. Sanjay Rastogi of Tata Trent, Dr. Shehnaz Kama, Mr. Yasdi Tantra, Ms. Devika Chatterjee, Ms. Raki Chabria, and Ms. Fiona Reynolds. This committee was supported by the core committee, and the most important person I need to name is Donna Reen, the summit coordinator. Donna has worked with me tirelessly for 18 months on this project. And I've been able to phone her at any time of the day or night, and she's always been available. A very special thank you to you, Donna. The core committee also comprises Mr. Yasdi Tantra, who has managed the entire website with his team and is managing the event today along with Mr. Glenn Concessio. A special thanks also to Deepa and Milan Soman, who are on our core committee as advisors and whose group of designers have helped us design beautiful pamphlets, visuals, and creatives. Mr. Bhavin Shah of Education World and Parent World. We've been supported by them. A day prior to the summit, we did an FB Live with them. Thank you, all of you. We have partnered with Tata Trent, Tantra Tech, K-Merck, Lumiere Business Solutions, Education World, Parent World, and Penultimate, Teachers Help Teachers, First Moms Club, and Wolves. The short video you saw at the beginning of the program has been made by Wolves. I'm also deeply grateful to luminaries like the Dalai Lama, who a day before the summit began, the education summit began, sent in a long letter congratulating us. The Dalai Lama in that letter says, I am pleased to know about the Global Tipping Point Summit and its focus on improving the present education system so that our younger generation can become more responsible citizens of the planet. Thank you, His Holiness. We also have support from the founder of the Isha Foundation, Sadhguru. Sadhguru says, we are touched by the GTPS initiative to empower the youth to be well equipped during these challenging times. And we are happy to share some quotes from Sadhguru and be a part of it. General Shokin Chauhan, recipient of 5 Presidential Distinguished Service Awards, has also supported us, along with Mr. Kersi Chowda, who's perhaps the best known psychiatrist in India today. Mr. Shyamak Dava, internationally acclaimed choreographer, singer, performer, and entertainment director, has also done a shout out for us. Shri M, spiritual guide, social reformer, educationist, and Padma Bhushan awardee. And Cyrus Brocha did a wonderful podcast with me a while ago. Cyrus, as you'd know, is a TV anchor, theater personality, comedian, podcaster, and author. And Mr. Baman Irani, theater and film actor, voice artist, and photographer. There have been many people working behind the scenes, and I especially need to thank my design team comprising Rhea Soman, Disha Uprati, Janavi Kulkarni, and Rohan Singikar. The organizing team comprising Shahrukh Vevaina, Dr. Nina Nair, Shalanta Mascarenas, Valerie Mendonça, Nagma Sheikh, Mustaq Sheikh, Madhu Nair, Gautami Ambiye, and Dipti Mazumdar. And the technical team. This is mainly the technical team of Mr. Yasdi Tantra, Tezan Charna, Ashish Kadam, Disha Poddar, and our social media person, Neha Vatsala. Thank you all. You all have been absolutely amazing. So today, I would like to welcome Father Joe Pereira. I was frankly quite surprised when he accepted my invitation almost spontaneously. Thank you, Father. Father is doing work tirelessly for addiction. and he will be introduced to you by our anchor for today, Ms. Aditi Hazra Ganju. Over to you, Aditi. Aditi is the co-founder of South Health. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Kumi, and I'm really, really excited to be a part of this summit in being able to anchor this event today. We're very passionate about conscious parenting and making the world a better place for our children, and that's what drives us to do what we do today, which is running Saath Health, which is a social impact enterprise working to build a healthier world. Um, I'm an entrepreneur in the healthcare and wellness space, but more importantly, and what really excites me about being here today is that I'm a mother to two young boys, and I, like all of you, want to build a better place for our children and be better parents to them, so that we can, give them something to look forward to. What Saath Health does is very simple. We provide AI-powered digital solutions to drive positive health outcomes. Last year alone, in the short span of our existence, we have worked to improve mental health, emotional resilience, children's nutrition, and we have educated nearly 20 million people across India through the content that we have created on how they can prevent COVID-19 and stay safe and healthy. How we do this is by using gamified learning tools. Like, we use a lot of quiz questions and make learning and health information fun and interesting, and not boring and preachy as it's used to being. We believe in giving the right message to the right audience in the right manner, and making it easy for them to understand and appreciate the key message that we're trying to give them. Apart from supporting the 50,000 families that use the Saath Health app, last year we worked on a number of initiatives, which is very much in line with what the Global Parenting Summit is doing. We were doing a series of talk shows called Parenting Ka Pitara. We partnered with an NGO, you're all aware of the UNICEF. We partnered with UNICEF to produce content on parenting during COVID-19 pandemic. We also created content for learning and parenting apps, one of them being Top Parent. So there's been a lot of conscious parenting content that has been worked on by our team, and that is why we are very excited that the Global Parenting Summit is doing what it's doing. What really touched us about what Kumi and her team are doing is the fact that it is very action oriented. It is not just all talk. It is not just about creating policies which may or may not see the light of day, but it's actually coming up with an action plan to change the world. So congratulations to the organizers of the summit, and wish you all the best. It is my privilege today to introduce to you our first speaker of the summit, Father Joe Pereira. Father Joseph Pereira is the founder of Kripa Foundation. It is one of the largest NGOs working in the field of rehabilitation of chemical dependency and HIV/AIDS. They have 65 facilities in 11 states and 16 archdioceses and dioceses in 6 countries. That's some fabulous work that Father Pereira has been doing. Over the last 38 years, he has revolutionized the entire concept of rehabilitation and has transformed the lives of thousands of individuals and their families. Let me depart from the script to give a personal anecdote that I first heard of Father Joe Pereira and Kripa when I heard of this experience that a very dear friend of mine faced in bringing his loved one out of alcoholism. And there is no better testament to anybody's work than hearing it from the horse's mouth, or hearing it from someone who has actually benefited from the work that has been done. So, Father Pereira, your reputation obviously precedes you. A little bit of background about Father. He's originally from Mumbai. He has a master's degree in philosophy and theology. He started as a parish priest at Mount Carmel's Church in Bandra, where he came in contact with numerous victims of alcohol abuse. And being a Catholic priest and the true Gandhian that he is, he dedicated his life to these people. And that is what we see today as the results of his labor of love. And it can be seen in thousands of alcoholics and drug addicts who he has rehabilitated into society. Father Pereira's meticulously designed and implemented what they call the Kripa module of rehabilitation. It consists of a diverse set of principles, and I was amazed to know that he actively incorporates principles of yoga and pranayam into his rehabilitation module. What it also does is that it addresses every dimension of the disease. So the physical as well as the mental, as well as the spiritual and the psychosocial. And in this, holistic way, that is how they manage to rehabilitate all their everyone who comes to them. He is, as mentioned before, an ardent student of Iyengar Yoga, and he does combine yoga and pranayam into the module of recovery. Another very interesting part that we learned was that Kripa AIDS was an initiative started by him in 1992 for drug users who tested positive for HIV/AIDS. And today there are various programs of prevention and care and support that are being implemented through the Kripa AIDS program nationwide. He's also a senior teacher of Iyengar Yoga, and he was granted by Guruji BKS Iyengar himself to design a special protocol of asanas in addiction treatment. It is trademarked and it is called Kripa Foundation Iyengar Yoga. He has participated and presented at numerous conferences. He has been the member of a high-level committee of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment and National Council and at the National Council for Drug Abuse Prevention run by the Government of India. He's presently appointed to the Bureau of Social Defense for Prevention of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse. Needless to say, his work has not gone unnoticed, and he has been acclaimed both in India as well as abroad. He received an award for anti-drug abuse at REACH in 1989, the Priyadarshini National Award for work in anti-drug abuse in 1990, the Perestroika Sanjeevani Award for anti-drug abuse in Mumbai, the Sahyog Foundation Award for outstanding work in the field of drug and alcohol abuse. My godfather, this is a long list, but it did culminate with the Padma Shri Award for 2009 in social work, which is what he is best known for, and the National Award in 2014 for a professional in the field of addiction treatment, which he received from the hands of the Honorable President of India at the time, Shri Pranab Mukherjee. Whoa, that was some introduction. And without further ado, I would like to call upon Father Joe Pereira, or Father Joe as he's fondly called, to talk to us today. Father Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Aditi. I'm humbled by your introduction. I want to get straight into the matter of this beautiful topic. I say beautiful because it's a most challenging topic that the lockdown made us aware of. In fact, the lockdown was a wake-up call for all of us to discover that addicts are not those whom we send to rehabs. Addicts are not those people whom we need to pity and we need to reach out to. But shockingly, we discovered that it's a dubious luxury to think that you are not an addict. By being human, we have this addictive energy. Now, how we use this addictive energy determines the kind of work we have done, the kind of self-worth we have achieved, or the kind of self-destruction we have brought about. So basically, we are called, we have a thirst for love. Martin Buber, the great existentialist, said that we are born for love, and love is a I-thou relationship. Now, if this I-thou relationship is not fulfilled, what do? We create an I-it relationship. This it can be a whole world that attracts us outside us. It can be the world of alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, misuse of money, power. You're seeing a vulgar display of power addiction today in the world, shocking the world. We can have so many other, and the biggest one, which is now afflicting people from the youngest to the oldest, is pornography. Kind of a Sex and Love Addict Anonymous addresses that issue. Today, I want to share with you that this entire problem has not to be treated alone. This problem has a double dimension. Kripa Foundation always recognized this because we couldn't treat a person if he is just said to be alone in the world. And an addict actually believes that he is alone in the world, and he suffers from loneliness and pain. And because of that loneliness and pain, he clings to things that will satisfy him. You know, this thirst for love is actually a thirst for God. And ironically, all addicts have this spiritual, it's a spiritual paradox. Our hearts are made for you, O Lord, but they are restless till they rest in you. But satanically, and I use the word satanically by a psychologist, psychiatrist, Carl Gustav Jung, who said addiction is a battle between good and evil. I don't want to go into the detail because he also says, I don't like the word Satan, but it's a good and evil. And this battle, we are born for love, and God is a spirit. But interestingly, we have named alcohol also spirit. And then he gives the formula that heals addiction. And he says, spiritus contra spiritum. That there's no solution unless you get the people back to its original blessing, original thirst, which is love. And therefore, in this treatment model, we have to, what shocked the world when the lockdown took place was that the external world of attraction, it's a huge world of addiction, catering to our senses, catering to our mind. And as soon as that closed down, people were thrown together. Families who never spoke to each other, one another, had to live together in the four walls or whatever. And they discovered that their whole life was all oriented towards an external world, and they had never known that there is what is known as a internal world. And that internal world is all about knowing thyself. Like Socrates, B.K.S. Iyengar, always insisted that you have to know yourself. St. Augustine said, noverim me ut noverim te. Lord, help me to know myself so that I can know you. This is the formula for healing addiction. And when we do it, you know, the self-help model, by the way, I must tell you this, in 1930, when the Great Depression took place, a stockbroker ran out of control, 4 times admitted in the town's hospital in New York. His doctor, Silkworth, gave up on him, called his wife and said, you better do something about this guy. You better lock him up, because if he touches the first drink, he will either go mad, he will go psychotic, or he will die a premature death. The man knelt on his bed and looked up and said, if you are there, manifest yourself to me. There was a bright light, and there was some kind of he had an experience. Next morning, when Dr. Silkworth walked in, he described that experience to him. And he said, Bill, I can say this to you, that this is a conversion. The second thing he said is that I'm a man of medicine. I cannot use such terms, but please hold on to it. He held on to it and went to be the co-founder of the Alcoholics Anonymous. But now this Alcoholics Anonymous is a blend of everything that medicine talks about, including the Diagnostic Statistic Manual 4 and 5, that it's a brain disease. It has to do something with our body, you know, and therefore it's not only the body, there is also the dimension of the mind, but which has 2 dimensions, psycho-spirituality and psychosocial relationship. It's an I-thou relationship that has to be restored. But this model came from the West, and therefore one had to see that there was something missing there, which was what was missing was the body. The psychosomatic was missing. And that is what we introduced. And this is very important because during the lockdown, I started doing these programs of pranayama and meditation. And amazingly, I realized that so many parents who had never taken care of their own spiritual life, their own prayer life, their own wellness, not just of the body, but of their mind and soul, were attracted to this program because the lockdown pressed us, put us into a situation where we had to address ourselves, to really know ourselves. Now, this disease has three important beginnings. The first thing is that if you get somebody who has this ailment, please know that it is not the first person. We claim so many great things that have come down from our gharana, from our family. We say, okay, my grandfather was a great singer, but you don't also say that he died of alcoholism. So we claim all the good things that we have got from our genetic predisposition, but we don't claim the liabilities. And the most thing, one of our four people who are going to explain will tell you that when we see our children afflicted with this ailment, let us not forget that we are responsible. Some way or the other, our parenting has gone wrong, and we have not sufficiently addressed our own traumas, and our own traumas start getting reflected in our children. This is a very, very essential principle that one has to know, because when Khalil Gibran said, your children are not your own, they're life's gift to you. Life goes forward, not backwards. So don't give them your mind, but rather listen to them. This lockdown has made parents really listen to their children. What is really their longing? What are their perceptions? Their perceptions are totally different from ours. They call parents nerds. They say, dad, mom doesn't. They give us only money. They don't spend any time with us. And that is the reparenting that has to take place as a result of this. I think it was a blessing that the lockdown made us come together and to address a condition that we had totally neglected. To come to the most important thing is that the behavior choices that we make from the time we have our children with us, we keep on giving them everything that they want. And the resultant effect is that, as Freud said, we put in them a kind of a infantile psyche that never goes away. And an addict has a very overblown infantile psyche with the three components that they must get what they want. They can't bear any frustration, and whatever they want it right now. And so, because of the affluence today, we just keep on dishing out things to them. And with the result that they can't take any frustration. And the third thing is easy availability to substances that can destroy their lives. And that's very, very, today in today's world, it is very easily available. And therefore, one has to be very careful about it. Now, we cannot heal them unless we heal ourselves. Consciousness is local. The kind of consciousness we parents carry has a measurable impact on the children. I often ask children when they come for treatment, what is the love life of their parents? Does daddy and mommy love each other? Do you see them loving each other? Hardly. If that is not there, forget about getting our children back into love. Yes, they do come back to love because then they have a sense of belonging with us. All the recovered fellowships. There is the Alcoholics Anonymous fellowships. There is the Narcotics Anonymous fellowships. There is Sex and Love Addict Anonymous fellowship. There is Family Anonymous. Family Anonymous is essential because whatever ailment and afflicted person carries is reflected upon the one who loves that person. So they are afflicted, but all of us are affected. Now, if we don't take the same measures that we offer these children or these addicted personalities to overcome their addiction or to cope with their addiction, we will always fail, because they always tell us what you say is correct, but what you do is not what we like to see. So, the dichotomy between authenticity and real practice is a very major factor of transparency that our children need to have. And we have learned that. During this lockdown, I have seen parents asking forgiveness of their children. I have seen children, getting back into their relationships that they had lost before, because it brought us together in an either relationship, which they had lost. And the most important thing is that when we restore that relationship in codependency, we discover that as we heal, our loved ones heal. There's a very powerful kind of mantra we use sometimes. It's a mantra that Ved Daya used very, very frequently. It is in the Hawaiian language, it is Oponopono. It's the four things that we say: I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you. Addressing that to prisoners. A man in Hawaii emptied the whole prison of prisoners. How powerful is this, that we can communicate that there is this consciousness is alocal. The kind of consciousness I carry can give the loved one. So often there have been people who come into our facility and they say, I don't want to go back home. I want to have a divorce. They try to work up a divorce. And then I give the wife or the loved one this mantra. And miraculously, within the 3 months, they have overcome all their problems and they connect once again, because there is no other solution besides love. And if they don't get it in the family, we provide it. And that is why the fellowship has grown all over the world. Today, Kripa has got branches, members doing this work. See, the 12th step talks about having had a spiritual awakening, one has to carry this message to others. Family systems therapy created for us a beautiful forum where we could reach out to other parents and brothers and sisters who could never understand what is wrong with their brothers and sisters, because they were always treating them as afflicted and something that they couldn't understand, But once they came into our group and we started telling them, it is not they, it is we. We have to see that we have failed in understanding them, in loving them. And when we change, they automatically change. Of course, there are major obstacles in the world today because not everyone is born in a family. Mother Teresa sent about 25 children who were adopted to Luxembourg. And the study showed that all except one went into heavy addiction. Studies showed that they came from rejected parents. They were born of maybe of sex workers. They were born of single parents. They were born of rape. They were, all kinds of things. And so with the result that they got tremendous affluence in Luxembourg, but they still went into brokenness and pain. Now, this study has shaken us all up, especially when we are doing adoption, that unless we heal our roots, unless we make that person genuinely feel loved, that person is going to repeatedly go into self-gratification, into some kind of make-believe that he is loved through some other kind of substance. And that's a big responsibility. We have, in this entire program, learned that we need to give our children an idea that what we used to do in the good old days, socially use alcohol, today they are saying, okay, let us also socially use the weed. It's not the same, because social drinking and social drug taking is, this will be explained to you by one of my colleagues today. Also, there is such a variety of availability of drugs today that people say, okay, I'm only doing cannabis, it won't be addictive. But we know that over a period of time, there is psychosis that comes in. We know that alcohol also has caused a lot of people to get schizophrenia. And so these kind of risks of so-called recreational use we have to be fully aware of it. I want to say one thing to you, that you could live with an addict for years and years, and you could feel that there is something strange about this child and never know what's really going wrong. Till one fine day, you wake up and find out that she or he has been using mind altering substances for 5 to 6 years. So it's a wake up call. This lockdown suddenly gave us a wake up call that there are so many parents who never really spent quality time with their children. Now, when they are thrown together, they begin to see them very closely as struggling. Our children are struggling. They can't understand what's going on in this stupid world. They can't make sense of the lockdown world. They cannot make sense of what is happening to their senses and to their mind. So what happens is that you have to really lift them up from this world into a world from where they'll be able to make sense. And that world is the Antaratma. Our hearts are made for you. So we have to make them, we have to create a new culture in whatever way they are studying or they are achieving. You have to always have the third dimension of Antaratma. Very often people teach yoga all over the world, only jumping like monkeys. They don't realize that it's not Bahiranga. It is not only pranayam. It is Antaratma, where you have an encounter with yourself, with the self, the true self. So you realize this addict, when the addict realizes that he's not just his body, he's not his breath, he's not his thoughts, no matter how sublime or how absurd. He is not his possessions. He is not his his sickness. He's not his addiction. I am who am, so aham tatvam asi. That recognition transforms the human being. And I'm happy to say that in this Indian culture, which today has spread all over the world, yoga has been practiced all over the world, and there are some beautiful schools which really encourage this dimension of Antaratma. I have finished my 20 minutes. I want to only end with one simple suggestion, that this is an area where we get to learn so much that there is no limit. Every day, addiction is baffling us because there are new pathways to creativity. Evil is more creative than good, very strangely. Jesus said the children of darkness are cleverer than the children of light, and we, therefore, sometimes we have just centered our attention on children of light. Oh, good people achieving a lot of things. But what about the so-called black sheep in the family? Perhaps that black sheep could have been an extraordinary person, but just felt unloved. Not because of our fault, because our parenting went wrong somewhere. And somehow or the other, we gave them wrong signals. With this, I conclude my 20 minutes. I've crossed 20 minutes. I'd like my associates, Gia, and all of that. I think, Aditi, you will introduce them to the crowd. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Father Joe Pereira. That was wonderful and very, very enlightening as we are learning from a lot of the comments that are coming in the chat box. I would like to move on to introduce the audience to the change facilitators who will be working closely with you on the projects. Let me just share my screen and take you through the introduction of all the change facilitators. The team that will be working very closely with Father Joe Pereira under his guidance will be working on handling codependency. We have 4 very dedicated folks who will be supporting him on this. If you are interested in signing up for the action project, you can do so by filling out the Google form that is on our website. You can find the link right over here on the slide itself. Our first change facilitator, who's also among us today, is Ms. Gia Pereira. She has a background in corporate communications, and she has worked as a PR manager at Code Chalo Pune. Welcome, Gia, and we hope to hear from you a little more once I've been through everybody's introductions.
Yes, thank you, Aditi, and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As a codependent, good evening, Father. As a codependent and moreover a parent, balancing your own emotions and being the best parent you can be every day is the greatest gift that you can give your child. You are their role model and strength, and they look up to you and will eventually follow in your footsteps someday. Substance abuse and addiction cause serious disruption in any family. The traumas we as parents carry can unknowingly affect our children in various ways. There is a greater risk for emotional problems and addiction in children from affected families, as they are more likely to have difficulties forming and maintaining relationships, develop depression and anxiety, and a lot of other issues. It is important for us as parents to be vigilant about this. As a single parent today, with 2 beautiful angels that I'm blessed with, I have been through a long and painful journey in the past with my spouse who was faced with the illness of addiction. After having realized from my impactful learnings at the regular sessions that I attended at our Kripa family sessions over these years, it was important for me to focus first on myself and my emotional well-being along with that of my children. It was then that I took a big decision of parting ways from a disturbed and abusive relationship. Living a happy life and relearning parenting out of an abusive and addiction free relationship, and thereby cultivating coping skills to deal with are essential lessons that one can pass on as a parent to your kid. The journey for me was tough, but it was my faith in God, the help that I received from my family and friends, and my extended family at Kripa, that I was able to move ahead to work on myself and stay strong for my kids. Seeing me happy made them happy. And I had to work on rebuilding myself from the disruptive relationship that I'd been through by playing dual roles of a parent at times. It wasn't the easiest thing to do. So, here are some things that I would like to share with you that helped me in my journey. Surrender to the higher power, prayer and meditation, the Serenity Prayer and Ho'oponopono prayer are very powerful, what Father Joe just mentioned to us earlier. Support from my family, friends, colleagues, and extended family at Kripa FSD that I was lucky to have. Counseling to a certain extent. Self love, love for oneself, and discipline. Well, it is a struggle, but worth the effort. We are human and can slip sometimes, but getting back is the key to all of it. It was through my actions I started to depict this in my day to day life, and my children noticed the gradual change in me. Children are innocent angels, and what you reflect as a parent is what they pick up as kids. While there were mixed emotions, feelings of hatred, pain, sadness, and no hope at all, that they saw me go through all of this in the past, showing them that I was now strong, happy, had faith in the higher power, and that we as a team could face and do anything together, gave them that confidence to move on despite all the troubled times and traumas that we had been through. They now see a different mom who is a lot more independent, much stronger, more confident than earlier, and someone who hopes to be a role model to them and help them build a much stronger future for themselves. It is important for all of us parents to relook sometimes at our parenting techniques and work towards rebuilding and relearning them to suit our individual requirements, especially in situations such as these. And this can be done either through self-help groups like the Family Systems Therapy Group that we are a part of, or through one-on-one counseling based on your individual needs. Please sign in the Google form as Action Group members, and we can always work together to make this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Jia. Your courage is really inspiring, and I hope it inspires others too to participate in this. Moving on to our next change facilitator, Mr. Venugopal, who's here with us today. He's 57 years old, married with 2 children. He works in service, and he's from Mumbai. Mr. Venugopal, over to you.
Yeah. Hello. Good evening, everybody. I'm just sharing briefly my experience as a codependent. I realized that I am a codependent after attending family system therapy meetings. My loved one, who is now clean for 1 year, 2 months, thanks to Father Joe and Kripa Foundation, used to depend on his substance for his happiness. I used to depend on my loved one for my happiness. I was not living for myself. I always used to think and worried about my loved one, my mood, my happiness, in short, my day to day life was driven by my loved one's routine. When I started attending the FST meeting and understood the 12 steps program, I realized how much I was concerned about my loved one and others' life, ignoring my own life and happiness. This 12-step program made me realize that I am totally powerless over another person's life, whether it is brother, sister, mother, daughter, father, or anyone. That I also need help and that I can expect only from the higher power by surrendering everything to Him and leaving everything to His way and His will. Yes, once I did that with full faith, I started loving and taking care of myself and my life. Everything began to change. Now I have to control and take care of myself only, and that is possible for me. I realize how much I have sacrificed and compromised in my life by remaining as a complete codependent. Yes, still I am a codependent, but now I also know how much I should depend on others, when and where I have to draw my boundary to keep myself happy. Thanks to Kripa Foundation and Father Joe and all my FST members group to show me this way to the spiritual program. We would like to train the people to understand how codependency plays the big role in understanding the addiction. Now I invite Madhavi to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Venugopal, for sharing your insights.
Thanks.
Moving on to Ms. Madhavi Nayak, who's an ex-banker who's worked in HDFC Bank in Nomura, and she's from Mumbai. Madhavi?
Yes, thank you, Aditi. Good evening, everyone. I'll touch upon the topic of risk of social use. Although people have been taking mind-altering substances for many years, the scenario we see today is a sharp contrast as to what it was even 10 years back or to the earlier generation. You know, in our time when social drinking was limited to having a beer or one glass of alcohol once in a while at a party or with friends has now altogether changed with this generation. In today's time, there is a very fine line, often between recreational use and that spiraling into addiction. More often than not, you will see that these are very young people who do it because they want to change something about their lives. And Father Joe did talk about this, right? They just want to be loved. They either want to fit in or relax, to relieve boredom, to experiment, or simply to rebel. Factors such as genetics, mental illness, atmosphere at home, peer pressure, and some kind of trauma also sometimes contributes to sending someone who's a social user into addiction. And most of the time, these individuals believe that, they believe that it's them controlling the substance versus the substance actually controlling them. Add to that, in most of the urban areas, you will find that it is very, very easily available to teenagers. It is most likely to be available at your corner shop panwala. I mean, if you approach them, and he may have substances like weed easily available for youngsters or anyone who wants to buy it with some kind of discretion. Substances like weed are also, not very expensive to buy. So now for one, alcohol and drugs are easily available and regularly consumed at parties these days. And it's not just parties where it is now consumed. As the habit forms, it is consumed on a daily basis, anywhere and whenever, and whenever they have a chance. It could be, in your own home, sometimes without your knowledge. It could be at the corner nukkad or at a friend's place. It is important for me, and I am also a mother of 2 teenage children, to address this and create awareness among parents about the dangers of social or recreational use and how things have changed over the years. This is where we would like to make a contribution. Going into the family systems therapy not only helps the person who's the addict, but also helps the family members who are greatly affected by it and need to deal with it. Some of the, very important risks associated with the social uses. It starts off as a social use, very infrequent, but it's very habit forming, and spiraling into full-fledged addiction is just a matter of time. The likelihood that one substance can lead to another. For example, if you're an alcoholic, there are chances that you would, start taking drugs. Or if you're, a drug user, there are chances that you will start taking alcohol. And the effects on daily life, I mean, many of my colleagues earlier who have spoken have already talked about it. You will notice that the children nowadays will have, I wouldn't call them children, you will notice that the individuals nowadays will lack interest in productive activities. They will not be able to concentrate on their education. Their work life is different. Their family life gets affected. And then that leads to other problems like health problems, sleeping patterns get affected, there's lack of appetite, and so on. So yes, that's, so, the Kripa Foundation has helped not just the afflicted, but also helps the affected in dealing with this problem. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Madhavi. We move on to Ms. Shanti Venugopal, who's also 57 years old, married with 2 children. She's a homemaker residing in Mumbai. Shanti, would you like to share your experiences? Shanti, we are unable to hear you.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I would like to throw some light on poly addiction among teenagers. For teens, it is natural to experiment with many things as they mature into adulthood, though some experiences have dangerous consequences. The transformation of their lives from a protective, controlled environment of a school and home to a free atmosphere of college, easy access to money, long distance travel, and new friends is so exciting for them. This can be one of the reasons to trying out different things like alcohol, drugs, and other harmful activities. Apart from this, even exposure to gadgets, lifestyles, peer pressure are also causes of very young kids to have become victims of multi-substance abuse. Polyaddiction means the person is addicted to more than one substance. My loved one is clean, who is clean from 1 year 2 months, and because of the help of Kripa Foundation and his 12-step program and the love and care of Father Joe, is polyaddicted. Most of us think that our loved one is not into any addiction till things reach a very chaotic stage and beyond control. With such mindset, it is almost impossible to find out whether they are polyaddicted. For example, we come to know mostly if they consume alcohol, like by its smell, but sometimes we are misled since even flavored alcohol is available to eradicate the smell. And with regard to drugs like weeds, Like it changes the color of the eye to red, but with the eye drops available, they have ideas to clear it within minutes and they look normal. Also, many take weed apart from alcohol under the wrong perception of recreation and gradually get into frequent usage of both, which is this poly addiction. Sometimes one may use drugs to stop alcohol intake and end up having both. Any addiction needs the right treatment, and I have experienced that the 12-step program is the only way effective to treat our codependency and help us to choose the right path to treat our loved one's addiction. We need to spend awareness among the young among the parents of young children to help early intervention into this problem of multi-substance abuse and save our teenagers. It's my pleasure to train and help anybody who needs this help. I would love to do it. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shanti, for throwing light on poly addiction. And that brings us to the end of the session with introducing and hearing from the change facilitators. The next step is for us to answer all the wonderful questions that have come in from the audience. If I may start reading out some of them, Father.
Yes, please do.
The first question is, they're asking whether you would say that addicts are weaklings.
It's a very good question. They give a picture of being weaklings, but that's only because we judge them according to our category of strength and weakness. They have a unique strength facility within them, and they misuse that strength to create a weakness within them. You know, it's a paradox. And so they're not weak, certainly not weak. And at the same time, they realize that they cannot do it with their own so-called willpower. They need to have a reference to a higher power. That's the equation.
Thank you. The next question is about consciousness and its understanding. How can that be taught by parents? Can the schools support us in training our children to be aware of this consciousness?
Yes, I think it's a must now in this particular age and day that our education institutions have to include some time for introspection as well as for prayer. You know, just for quiet time and to do what we call chitta vritti nirodha, shut the chatter of the mind. You know, if the child develops that, now we have schools for this kind of a thing. You know, in Australia, we have over 200 schools where we have trained children to meditate before they start the class. So the teacher with them spends 3 minutes, which is a long time. Try to be quiet for 3 minutes, listen to the breath and use a mantra. Mantra that they use is Maranatha, which is come Lord. You can use Hari Om, you can use Allah, Shalom, anything. But that makes the right brain active. And once you teach a child to activate the right brain, then the balance is maintained.
That's wonderful. Let's hope the schools are able to. I do hear of a lot of non-conventional schools using this right now. They do have a period where they get the child to sit down, slow down, meditate, do some introspection, which is great. And I hope it increases in future as well. The next question asks about food addictions. What do you deal with that as well? Is it also the result of feeling lonely and lost?
Yes, there is an Overeaters Anonymous, and people sometimes may laugh at it, but there is definitely a phenomenon called eating disorder. Eating disorders, like any addiction, is a substitute for intimacy. And therefore, building up a sense of belonging and a sense of love is the ultimate answer, along with all the other disciplines of yoga and all that.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we have some comments in the chat, and there is Shreya who says that they have adapted the same technique about introspection and meditation in their school. And so is Tapati. She's doing it in their school as well. So wonderful. I'm so glad that schools are already doing this.
Beautiful.
The next question asks, what are the signs do you look for in a child? I'm guessing around dependency, whether there is some substance abuse within a child.
It begins with parenting. Because if your parenting has been of a style that you give them things, but you don't give them love, then you will never recognize it. Because that child will always be away from you. But if you have been having a nice, intimate relationship with this child, you'll immediately feel that this child is hurt, he's feeling lonely, he's feeling unloved. And that's the first sign that he's turning to something else that is satisfying him or her.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, the better you know your child, the more you are tuned into what's going on with him, and you can pick up on these signals very easily. That's true. The next question is that media icons are known to do drugs. This makes our kids feel that drugs are glamorous. Can we do something about this problem?
When media people come out of this, I don't want to mention names, they are very well-known names today in India. And of course, they have given me permission to use their names, but I fear to use their names because that can be misused. Top-ranking media people, journalists, television stars, actors, all coming into our fellowship and acknowledging, like, Anthony Hopkins, just to use one actor, I don't want to use Indian actors, quite a few of them now coming into this, what is known as a self-help program, keeping away from the first use, because the first use does the damage once you are an addict. And so these things, when you spread them so often, just the other day, an actor, in the midst of all this, they were forcing him on the New Year's night, come on, you can have this. And then he came out with it and he said, I've had enough of it. And I belong now. And then he used my name. He said, I've met this guy, Father Joe. And after that, I don't feel I should touch anything. He didn't want to disclose that he's into Alcoholics Anonymous. So yes, there are people who make it.
Great. Are parents the only ones you can blame? What about peer groups?
As one of my staff just now mentioned, definitely peer groups. Again, what kind of peer groups? If parents know the children's friends, no problem. But very often, these children don't like to introduce their friends to their parents. And that's the first sign that they are with the wrong type of peers.
How do we help an addict not to revert to addiction?
How do
we prevent going back to their ways?
See, let us realize one thing. Once an addict, always an addict. It's a very sad saying, but not really. It makes you realize that you are human. And once you accept that this is your Achilles heel, then you will always protect that Achilles heel. And so relapse is a common occurrence. I have had a person who relapsed after 18 years. 18 years. And you know something? Within 6 months, he died. Because when you relapse, you can have a horrible backlash. I have had a person now in treatment, lived 10 years sober and came back, relapse and finding it extremely difficult because this is how powerful this addiction is. But there is also a brighter side to it, that if you really relapse and learn from your relapse, you have a much better long-term sobriety.
Can there be a good addiction, or are all addictions bad?
Oh, certainly there are good addictions. For instance, sports is a good addiction. Running and sports and all is a good addiction. Can be very addictive. Meditation becomes addictive. Yoga becomes addictive. I would never let a day pass without my yoga. I'm a yoga addict. I can say that. And there are so many. The reading is a good addiction. So whatever supports life is good addiction. And we always have an addictive energy. It depends how well we channel that towards self-growth or self-destruction.
True. Are recreational drugs easily available? I think this is something that Madhavi already covered. She talked about how it was as easy as finding it in the local panwala shop. But any further inputs that you'd like to add on this, Father?
You know, the ones who are selling these recreational drugs, and particularly all forms of cannabis, the weed and all that, today has multiplied. I'm sitting with a guy here who has come out of it 2 years almost now, but hardcore addict. And my goodness, he would, for him to get the stuff, just walk out and somebody would come and give him the packet. Even in rehab centers, there are people who come and throw the packets over the wall. Don't worry, you pay me after you come out from your rehab. So it is available. You will be surprised that you can, as soon as you step out of a plane, step out of a bus, saab, maal chahiye, maal hai, So it is available. It's really available. And I'm telling you one thing, that it is getting worse day by day, getting worse, because I deal with demand reduction, which is not to go to the drug, but there is my whole colleagues of police, narcotics control people, the topmost people there. I tell them, that it's impossible. I cannot deal with them because there is a link. Very sad to say. Time and again, these guys have been found guilty because temptation, huge money. This is a narco-terrorism. And this on the national plane, on the international plane. So I don't get into that. I told Julio Rivero in 1983, I will not give you the names of addas because you people know it. Shivanandan, after 20 years, tells me, no, you can tell me. And then I come back from his office and a cop comes to my room and says, Saab, bola kuthe aaye the. I said, my goodness, Shivanandan, I will never deal with y'all. I can't deal with the supply reduction. It's a hoax. There are very few people who are dedicated to really keeping the drug away from our children. Availability, plenty.
This is an interesting question. How can we heal dichotomous thinking, God versus man, about a punishing God?
I don't believe in a punishing God. Simple. If somebody is looking at God as a punisher, he's got a wrong concept of life, because the very fact that one was created out of love. And therefore, sometimes people who are born as an act of rape or an act of rejection suffer from this guilt. Suffer from this deep-rooted trauma. Then you have to do craniosacral work on them. You have to work on them in such a way that you can heal those. There is a healing process for this, and wipe out this idea that there is a punishing God. No way. I don't buy that idea at all.
But Father, the truth of the matter is that when children are being brought up, they're constantly being told, God will punish you. I think one of the most pertinent statements that you made today is thirst for love is thirst for God. And instead of equating God with love, most people tend to equate God with a punishing father. And this dichotomy creates a self versus other consciousness, and the whole idea that it's me versus God. The Zen scholar Suzuki began his lecture in the United States saying man versus God, God versus man versus woman, woman versus the man. Very funny way of thinking. But that's the way children grow up thinking of God. Either as a Christmas father, give me what I want, or you don't exist, or he's only there to correct my mistakes. So I think instead of making children really feel that love for God and realize that we are not giving or taking love, we are love. That's our essence. That's what we are made up of. How does one go about that? You talked about one consciousness. You talked about Ho'oponopono so effectively. So how do we convey this to children in a very simple and acceptable manner?
Touch, sparsh. That's where I am a Hatha Yogi. That's where Iyengar has taught me that the body never tells lies. And when you touch the body, when you get into the cellular consciousness, the Pinda Shakti, Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande, as it is for me on my cellular consciousness level, so for me, the world. Like Einstein, I begin to see that the world is a very friendly place, and so is God a very friendly person.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Father.
There's just a couple more questions that we can take before we wrap up. There is a question, how do I know if someone is addicted to drugs? Basically about the symptoms that you watch out for.
It's a very special, very good question, because let me tell you one thing. This starts with a syndrome called denial. There was a famous author in Marathi, Acharya Atre, who wrote a beautiful book, To Me Navets, I am not, an ekats pyala, one cup, the phenomenon of addiction is that of denial. I am not one. Now, both for the person who is afflicted and the person with whom he is living, this becomes a big problem. People like to say, because use, misuse, and abuse are three stages. So you may be in a stage of use, so-called social use. Then you go into a stage of problem use. 9 out of 10 people using problematically can come out of this problem use. One cannot because of his genetic predisposition. He goes into the compulsive use, which is addiction. Now, that is a very difficult, discerning, and you need a lot of humility to say, I think I am now an addict. Once you get the grace of God to say, yes, I am an addict, I am who I am, but I am an addict, then you are free. Till you don't tell the truth about yourself, you're never free.
I think you partly also addressed another question that had come up about the role that genes play in addiction. You talked about how there is a genetic compulsion towards addiction. Is there anything else you'd like to add on that?
Viktor Frankl talked about this genetic compulsion, and he talked about the Y chromosome with case of criminal behavior. Many children sometimes tell lies and all and then go to be criminals. They may be having this Y chromosome. He made a study of a guy who was in prison 40 times. His brother also, he was an identical twin brother. He followed him. He got to know that he also was in prison, but not what you are thinking. His brother had done a PhD on criminology, and he was a director general of police. So whatever we have as so-called in genetically predisposed, we can turn it around. Kripa is a whole lot of wounded healers. I don't take professionals to heal others. I take broken human bodies and minds who come to healing and offer their life for the same thing. This is what Mother Teresa taught me. That, it's not giving from your abundance. That is never respected. That even tramples on the human dignity. But you give from your own lack of resources. So in addiction, mutual vulnerability, commonly shared, brokenness and pain, when you share it, it empowers the human being. And all my change the facilitators are going to teach people how to follow this principle, not to give counseling and all that kind of, no, not I am okay, you're not okay. No, I am not okay, you are not okay, but that's okay.
Well said, Father. I think there's another interesting comment saying that with the recent incident of what happened with Janvi, and the boy who committed the crime says that he was under the influence of substances, it becomes a very convenient excuse to use for criminal behavior. I just think that's really sad. And I mean, there are at several levels we have to address the problem. If there's anything you'd like to add to that.
Well, it's a chicken and egg situation. Which came first? Did addiction come first, or did criminal behavior come first? These are both so close, intimately connected. You can't put one blame onto the other. It is a cumulative result of it. So yes, we have to be open to the human being given a chance to reform, but It's very flexible, and it's not, there's no definitive teachings on this, except the human contact. I live with I have a person who killed his works manager, and today he's with me for the last 20 years. I mean, completely a different person. So yes, I have worked with murderers. I have worked with people who are a threat to society. It turned them around. The only difference is that they call me Papa Joe, they call me Daddy, and one calls me Ai, Mother, because for them they saw God in a loving human being. And I think if we can be those loving human beings to one another, this universe will convert all so-called murderers into saints.
Very, very well said, Father. Thank you. I think this last comment from Jasmine is very apt. It says, solutions to any issue starts with acceptance of the issue, and be it a parent accepting that their child is dependent, or a teacher recognizing the symptoms, or people like yourselves at Kripa helping those in need. I think acceptance is really the first step. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a great it's been a great experience for all of us. I'm pretty sure. I think with that we come to the end of our session today. Father, you've been remarkable. It's been very, very enlightening. And now I'd like to invite Ms. Shalanta Mascarenas, who's a senior teacher of English at the JBCN International School. She will be giving us a vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aditi. Thank you, Father Joe Pereira, for a highly informative presentation dealing with a growing social problem. Many thanks also to the team of change facilitators comprising of Shanti Venugopal, Mr. Venugopal, Gia Pereira, and Madhvi Naik. We genuinely applaud the work you all do and know that you have worked consistently for months to put together a very meaningful action project. Our thanks also go out to Ms. Aditi Sithanganju for anchoring the session so well. We also extend our gratitude to all our participants who joined us today from all over India and different countries of the world. Do also note that all the remaining sessions of the summit have been scheduled for weekends, especially only up to 31st January 2021. We need you to work collaboratively with us to bring about change we want to see in the world. Do also remember to join us tomorrow from the 10th of January from 4 to 5:15 p.m. for our session on mindfully and heartfully connecting children to the earth. The session is going to be conducted by Mr. Bittu Sehgal and his wonderful team of change facilitators. Our session tomorrow is also going to be anchored by Ms. Anupama Dalmia, writer, mom, influencer, and serial entrepreneur. Kindly also note that the action forms for the action project on today's session on handling codependency is available on the website www.gdpsforchange.org. Also note that the link is the same for all sessions for the entire summit all throughout. In case you do not find the link, please do visit the website, or in case you've missed out on any past events, please also visit the website. Remember to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you so much. Until then, stay safe, stay happy.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, team.